I was never meant to be noticed. That was the point of my training, the purpose of my existence, to blend into the background, to be invisible until the moment I was needed. On Earth, they called men like me ghosts, soldiers who spoke rarely and acted decisively. When the Terran Alliance assigned me to the Helianth delegation, I thought it would be like every other assignment. Stand watch, keep quiet, make sure no one got close enough to cause trouble. Easy work for someone who lived in silence. But the moment I laid eyes on her, I knew this mission would be different. Princess Elira. She carried herself like someone born to command, yet her eyes betrayed her. Silver hair fell like a river of light over her shoulders, her every movement poised and graceful, but beneath it all I saw something raw, fear, carefully hidden behind layers of royal discipline. She was young, younger than I expected for someone with the weight of an empire on her shoulders. I stayed where I was supposed to be, at the edge of the room, in shadows, my rifle slung, my senses sharpened. Most of her guards looked ornamental, dressed in ceremonial armor that would shatter at the first real hit. I knew, because I studied people like them. They shifted uneasily, laughed too loudly, gripped weapons like they were foreign objects. Pretenders. And she knew it too. Her eyes scanned the hall often, and every time, they returned to me. The quiet one. She never spoke to me, but I could feel the weight of her awareness. As if she was waiting for me to move, to speak, to acknowledge her. I didn't. That wasn't my place. My job was to remain unseen, unheard, until the moment she needed me most. And though she didn't know it yet, that moment was coming. The attack came faster than anyone expected. One moment, the convoy was quiet, the rhythmic hum of the engines blending with the low chatter of guards, and the next, the world exploded into chaos. The first plasma shot ripped through the air, searing blue light cracking against metal. The sound alone made the Helianth guards falter. I didn't. My rifle was in my hands before their screams had even started. The mercenaries came out of the ruins like predators, armor scavenged from a dozen dead worlds, eyes hidden behind cracked visors. They moved with a kind of hunger I'd seen before. Mercenaries didn't fight for causes, they fought for pay. And someone had paid them well to take the princess alive. I moved on instinct, calculating angles, distances, weaknesses. Elira stood frozen, her ceremonial guards breaking formation in blind panic. Some ran. Others fired wildly, hitting nothing but shadows. She was exposed, her silver hair catching the faint glow of moonlight as if marking her for death. I didn't think. Thinking wastes time. My body carried me forward, closing the distance in a breath. I grabbed her shoulder, shoving her down just as one of the mercenaries leveled a rifle at her heart. The flash was blinding. Pain erupted in my chest as the bolt tore through me, burning deep, hot and violent. My knees buckled, but I forced myself to stay upright. I would not fall. Not here. Not now. Her cry pierced through the smoke, high and raw, the sound of someone who couldn't understand why a stranger had just given everything for her. My vision blurred, but I turned my weapon on the shooter and dropped him with a single pull of the trigger. Blood filled my mouth, my chest burned, but I stayed between her and the world. That was my job. That was my promise. We didn't have time to breathe. The moment the first wave fell, I pulled her to her feet and forced us into motion. My left arm was nearly useless, the wound searing with every step, but I kept my rifle steady in my right. The ruins of the Veyrath corridor stretched out before us, jagged steel and broken stone like the ribs of some dead giant. It was a maze designed for ambushes, and the mercenaries knew it better than we did. The princess stumbled as we ran, her delicate slippers never meant for terrain like this. I tightened my grip on her wrist and dragged her forward, ignoring her gasps, ignoring my own blood leaving a trail behind us. We couldn't stop. To stop was to die. Why? She choked out behind me, her voice breaking under fear and exhaustion. Why would you do that? Her words clawed at something inside me, but I gave her nothing. No answers. My silence was all I had left. The only thing that mattered was distance between her and them. We reached what looked like an abandoned relay station, its metal doors bent and rusting but still intact. I kicked one open, shoved her inside, and sealed it as best I could, jamming the mechanism with a shard of metal. The air inside was stale, heavy with dust, but it was cover. It would have to do. I collapsed against the wall, feeling warmth flood down my chest where the bolt had torn through me. My vision swam, but I stayed conscious, forcing myself to watch the shadows outside. She knelt in front of me, her hands trembling as she tore strips from her gown, pressing them against my wound. Her tears fell freely now. I wanted to tell her not to cry. But my silence said enough. I would endure. For her. The night stretched on like an eternity, broken only by the distant echo of voices outside. The mercenaries hadn't given up. Their torches bobbed in the ruins, their laughter sharp and cruel as they searched. Every scrape of metal and crunch of gravel set my instincts on edge. My body screamed with pain, but I forced myself to remain alert. One mistake, one lapse, and she would be gone. She sat across from me in the dim light of the relay station, her face pale, streaked with dirt and tears she tried to hide. She had bound my wound as best she could with silk and trembling hands, and now she stared at me like she was trying to solve a riddle. For the first time since this mission began, I felt her eyes not as a passing glance but as a weight pressing against me. "You don't even know me," she whispered, her voice so soft I almost thought I imagined it. "And yet you bled for me. My own men ran. My own guards fell, but you stayed." Her words cut deeper than the plasma bolt. I wasn't supposed to care. I was a soldier, trained to detach, to act without attachment. Duty was my only compass. But something in her voice, in the fragile strength she was trying to hold on to, struck through all the walls I had built around myself. I shifted slightly, grimacing from the pain, but said nothing. My silence was all I had ever trusted. And yet, when her hand reached out, hesitant, brushing against mine with a touch so light it could have been a dream, I didn't pull away. In that quiet moment, I realized the truth. This wasn't just about protecting a princess anymore. It was about protecting someone I could no longer bear to lose. Dawn brought no relief. The light only revealed how many of them were still out there. I counted at least 24 shapes moving through the wreckage, their weapons glinting in the pale sun. They weren't rushing in this time. They were patient now, circling, waiting for us to tire. They wanted her alive, and they wanted me bled out and gone. I didn't waste time on fear. Fear gets you killed. I scavenged what I could from the old relay station: power cells, rusted panels, bits of wiring. My hands moved with the precision of training, turning scraps into traps. Pressure mines, improvised tripwires, explosive charges rigged to collapse parts of the structure. If they wanted to come for her, they'd have to bleed for it. Elira watched me as I worked. There was no judgment in her eyes now, only a quiet awe that made me uneasy. I wasn't her savior. I was just a man trying to hold back a flood with a cracked shield. Still, when I met her gaze, she gave a small, steady nod, as if she understood, as if she trusted me completely. That trust was heavier than any weapon I carried. The first mercenary breached just after sunrise. My trap detonated, the explosion hurling him back into his comrades. Screams followed, smoke filling the air. I moved through the chaos like a shadow, firing with deadly precision, each shot buying us another heartbeat. But for every one I dropped, 2 more appeared. My chest burned, my vision blurred, my body begged me to stop. I didn't. I couldn't. And then the ground shook. A new sound thundered through the air, deep engines, far larger than the mercenaries could ever afford. Ships descending. I felt Elira stiffen beside me. Her voice cracked when she spoke, barely more than a whisper. "No, not her." The ships blotted out the rising sun, their black hulls etched with symbols that made even the mercenaries scatter like frightened vermin. Engines roared as the flagship descended, stirring the dust and smoke into a storm that battered the broken relay station. I steadied myself against the wall, my rifle hanging useless in my grip. Whoever had arrived was not here to rescue us. When the ramp lowered, the air itself seemed to bow. She emerged like a storm-given form, tall, cloaked in shadow-threaded silk, eyes glowing with the weight of command. The Empress. Elira's mother. I had expected elegance, some distant figurehead dressed in finery. Instead, she radiated power like a weapon sharpened over centuries. Her gaze swept the battlefield, cold and unyielding, until it landed on me. For the first time since I was a boy, I felt small. Her eyes narrowed, studying the blood running down my chest, the way Elira clung to my arm as though I were her anchor. She took one step forward, and the soldiers behind her moved in perfect unison, every motion sharp as a blade. "You," she said, her voice low but carrying like thunder. "A human. A soldier of Earth. You took a bullet for my daughter." I didn't answer. My silence had carried me through countless battles, and it carried me now. Words would only betray weakness. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Then her attention shifted to Elira. "Step away from him. Now." The command cracked like a whip in the air. The princess trembled against me, her fingers tightening around my sleeve. She should have obeyed. Any sane person would have. But instead, she pressed closer, her eyes locked on her mother. "No," she said, her voice shaking but firm. And in that single word, I knew the battle had only just begun. The weight of the Empress's presence pressed down like a mountain. Even the air felt heavier, thick with authority that demanded obedience. Soldiers stood frozen, mercenaries vanished into the ruins, and yet Elira did not move from my side. Her small frame trembled, but her chin lifted in defiance. I could feel her pulse racing through the grip she had on my arm, her entire body poised between fear and courage. "No," she repeated, louder this time. "I won't leave him. Not after what is done. Not after what he means to me." Her words rang out in the silence, cutting through the tension like a blade. The Empress's eyes narrowed, her gaze flicking from her daughter to me. I could see the calculation in her stare, the cold precision of someone who had ruled by force and fear for far too long. She had expected her daughter to obey without hesitation. She had not expected defiance. Every instinct in me screamed to prepare for the end. My strength was gone, my body failing, but I shifted just enough to place myself in front of Elira. If they tried to take her, I would fight until my last breath. The Empress stepped closer, her expression unreadable, her shadow falling over both of us. For a moment, I thought she would strike her daughter down for disobedience. Instead, a strange smile curved her lips, thin, dangerous, almost amused. "You've changed her," she murmured, her voice softer now, though no less sharp. "No warrior of mine has ever made her speak like this. Perhaps, you've changed more than just her." Her soldiers waited for a command that never came. She studied me one last time, and in her eyes, I saw not judgment, but something worse, interest. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I had survived the mercenaries. I had survived her test. But now, I was marked. By the Empress.